Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. I'm your host, Marguerite Crespillo, and I started this podcast simply dedicated to calling people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now, let's dive into the world of real estate. Hello, everybody. So it's a little bit of a rainy day here in Northern California, but it's probably a little rainier in Portland, which is where my guest is today. So I'm Marguerite Crespillo, and welcome to Real Estate Real World. I'm actually really interested in this guest today because for those of you who've been following me for a while, I sold a ton of REOs back in the day. And so today we're going to hear from George McCleary. He's a seasoned real estate investor, developer, and market commentator with over 2 decades of experience in the industry. Since 2003, he has served as a broker, investor, and developer, handling complex sales, rehabilitations, ground-up developments, including single-family homes, high-rise multifamily buildings, and commercial properties. Beyond his professional endeavors, George shares his insights through various platforms, and he maintains a YouTube channel where he discusses real estate investments, strategies, and market trends. So welcome to the show, George.
Marguerite, so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you today. So one of the things that came through when we were looking at having you on the show is you've done a lot of stuff and you've actually created some software and programs for squatters and all this stuff with investors. So I really am fascinated by that because, as we mentioned a little bit before coming on live today, is that I sold a ton of REOs and I dealt with so much of that. Like even the word REO gives me a little bit of PTSD.
Oh yeah, no, I imagine that definitely brings back some painful memories.
For sure, for sure. So tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into this new arena you're working on.
For sure. So like you said, I'm a seasoned real estate investor and developer. I've been in the game for about 20 years as a broker, developer, house flipper, you name it. I've given it a shot. But what happened to me earlier this year that kind of changed everything was I just posted a video like I do often on social, but this one really caught fire. It was a video where I pretended to be a squatter. It was called I Stole a House. So I said, this is how I stole a house in Portland, Oregon, and totally got away with it. And I just went through the playbook, and the playbook is of basically the career criminal squatter that's running the squatter scam nationwide. There's thousands of them now. And basically what they do is they gain access to a house by breaking into a lockbox or otherwise, and they move in their stuff, move in their buddies and their couches so that when the owner finds out and calls the police, the cop has a he said, she said situation on his hands because they got one guy saying, I'm sorry, officer, but this man is mistaken. I obviously live here. As you can see, I have this lease that I printed up on the computer 5 minutes ago, and got the owner saying, I've never heard of this guy. What the heck is going on? Arrest him. And the cop is saying, okay, well, I can't just pull this guy out of this house because he might have a legitimate claim to be there. And landlord tenant law is a thing. So we can't pull him out. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to take him to court. And in a lot of places, especially like the places like we're from, Marguerite, in California and Oregon, evictions take forever. And plus, it's a tacit admission that like this guy's a tenant. He actually has the right to be there when, of course, he doesn't. So people started contacting me after this. Like some people, I was getting like death threats because they thought that I actually was a squatter. And so it's, click back to my profile. Like you see, I'm a developer. But yeah. And so people were like losing their minds, but a lot of people contacted me saying, hey man, you won't believe what happened to me with my squatter situation. I'm like, dude, let's Zoom. Let's talk about it. Yeah. And just time and time again, I started talking with these people and hearing their stories about how they got scammed by squatters or other things in the real estate world, like title fraud. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, this is a really huge problem and a really underserved market because these people like, there's the financial damage, there's the emotional damage, just the amount of brain damage that you go through when you're fighting an uphill battle against a squatter or a title thief. It's just incalculable. So I started leaning into it. And several months later, I started a software company to protect against title fraud and an online course to protect against squatters. And now I'm going out talking to people about it.
It's so crazy because, like I mentioned, I sold a ton of REOs and I have a bazillion stories of people doing that exact thing.
Yeah.
And what has also been pretty prevalent, although it seems to have faded a bit, I'm not sure if I'm just not paying attention, but the other thing is they'll take your, if you, especially if you have a vacant listing, they will take your listing pictures as a real estate agent, and then they promote that property on Craigslist and Facebook groups, on things like that, where they're literally, and when you contact them, they'll go, oh, I'm not in the area. If you send me X amount of dollars, then I can send you the keys. And
Oh, yeah, just send
obviously
me
these
some
people
money
are,
and that'll be your deposit, and yeah, put the keys out for you. Yeah, the rental
it's
scam.
just crazy to me. And I've had people call me and say, hey, I saw your sign in the yard. Is this house really for rent? And I'm like, no. Or another situation I had, this was years ago, where we had to do weekly inspections on foreclosures back in the day for this exact reason.
Mhm.
And we get to this house, they had moved, exactly like you said, they had moved everything in. Now, the police at that time told me it depended on how you said it when you called the police. If you said breaking and entering versus, now this is here in the Sacramento area, so I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was, there was either a breaking and entering or another term. But if you said one of the terms, they really couldn't do anything. They'd have to do like you said. If you said the other term, then they could actually arrest them. But,
Yeah.
and it seems like there were real estate agents involved in these, because we had one where it was the agent's information on the lease and they had accessed the lockbox. Insane stories. And you're just like, what the heck?
Yeah, it really just that's the exact emotion that it renders is what the heck. And yeah, that is a thing. If you can prove forced entry, that's one of the first things that I teach in the Squatter Defender course is, and I don't actually teach people to do this, but I present a lot of case studies where people have done certain things and they've gone a certain way. Let me give you an example. So with the forced entry thing, there was a story that a guy told me where a guy he came to his rental property. There was a squatter inside there, and no sign of forced entry, no nothing. But he like encounters a squatter and says, "What the heck are you doing?" The guy says, "Yeah, no, whatever. This is my place now. Go fly a kite." So what does the owner do? He reels back. He's a bigger dude. And he kicks in the door and just bangs it right off of the hinges. And squatter's like, "What the heck are you doing?" And the owner just calmly walks back to his car, calls the police and says, "Hey guys, you're not going to believe this, but I'm pretty sure that somebody has broken into my house. Like they must have kicked in the door or something. So can you send someone down here?" And the cops show up and they arrest the guy because there was clear signs of forced entry.
Yeah,
For
it's insane to me, but it's happening, and now these scams are getting better and better at the whole scam that they're doing. And even now you try to sell something on Marketplace or Facebook or something, and you're getting somebody who's, "Oh yeah, I'll send you the money and then you could just send it back." I'm like, "What?" It's
yeah,
like crazy. It's like you wish these people would use that same brain power to do something more useful for the
it's
world.
literally every time now. It used to be every so often, and you have to be like, "Is this a scam?" And now it's literally every single time you list like anything, and they'll be like, "Okay, here's I'll send you this banking info or whatever." It's no.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And so tell me, okay, so you have a course that is helping people avoid squatters, how to tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that course.
Yeah, so Squatter Defender, it's an online course and it can be completed in an afternoon, so it's not too long, but the reason I shortened it is it's just very condensed. It's very dense in terms of all the information that it provides, but it's squatter prevention, detection, and ejection. How to make sure that if there's a squatter in your property and how to prevent that from happening in the first place. So that's a good chunk of it right there. Because if you can prevent it, you're way ahead of the game. But there does come the unfortunate circumstance of having a squatter. And if you have enough properties and over a long period enough time, chances are eventually it's going to happen to you. But that's the ejection portion. And that is the stuff that like makes the news. And thus that's where a lot of those quote unquote unconventional methods of squatter removal come into play. And so again, while I don't necessarily recommend that people do a lot of the methods that I talk about, I say, here's what people did and here's what happened. And that way people are just empowered with the information they need to know exactly that, to know that they have options, that it's not immediately like okay, I have a squatter, I'm just going to go call my lawyer and hope for the best, because all a lawyer or the property manager is ever going to tell you is, yeah, you got to take them to court. It's all you can do. But that's not correct. You do have other options.
And the crazy part about the tragedy of this is that, especially if people think, "Oh, well, you're an investor, so you have plenty of money," right? And a lot of times these are homeowners that own maybe one rental property, and for to have somebody move into it, and it can take years to evict. I mean, here in California, it can take a minimum of a year to 2 to 3 years. When I was going through it with REO, we had one that lasted 4 years because the tenant knew how to work the system, right? They'd get right to the edge, and then they'd have a delay, and
Or
then they'd get another delay, and they'd file bankruptcy, and they'd all these different things. It was took 4 years to get these
holy
people
Toledo.
out
Was
of this house. And at
your
that time,
property?
what's that?
Was that your property, or is that
No, it
somebody
wasn't
else's?
mine. It was an REO, but then people
Oh,
think it was a bank foreclosure, so people think, "Oh, the banks have plenty of money." But
right.
if that was a regular one-house investor, I would have lost the house by that. It would have gone to foreclosure by that point.
To say nothing
You
of the
can't
neighbors.
continue to make those mortgage payments and pay, because they're not paying anything either. So when they're
Yeah.
squatting, I think the thing that people forget is they're not paying. Not only are they not paying any of the rents or utilities, but a lot of times there's definitely not taking care of the property and might even be trashing it, causing more damage, delay. I got stories for days of what the condition of these properties looked like once we actually got someone out. I have one house that I went into. I'm walking around. I'm like, where is the kitchen? They had literally stripped everything. The only way I could tell there was a kitchen is because the pipe's sticking out of the walls.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
I
wow.
mean, they
Yeah.
had taken everything you can imagine in that house.
Anything of value and anything not of value, they'll take it with them
Outlet
anyway.
covers,
Lick covers,
pipes,
yeah.
you're like,
They
"Are
cost a
you kidding
nickel,
me?"
but no, they're
Yeah.
taking them.
Yeah,
That's just
it's
crazy.
insane. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I guess this is actually a great opportunity for me to gather more data points, because after speaking with tons of owners who have encountered squatters or have had them or heard about them, almost invariably the places get completely trashed.
Trashed.
There's almost no exceptions. There's like the very, very rare, like I'd say like 1 out of 100, where someone says it's crazy. They it looked just like a regular apartment, but the other 99%, it's gradations of just how trashed it is. And so that's your experience then, that it's about 99 or
100%. Like I said, we would come into these properties and they would steal heat and air units. They would steal There's a great movie, I don't know if you've ever seen have you seen 99 Homes?
no. You recommend that
It's
one?
actually it's about the foreclosure market. That one and The Big Short, those are my 2 favorite
Oh,
movies
I love The
from,
Big Short.
The Big Short's one of my favorite movies. But 99 Homes, it makes the agent look bad, so it's not fair, the
Mm.
but it talks about how these houses were just yeah, I got a million stories.
I believe it. I believe it. And in the course of finding out about all this, it wasn't just the squatting stories that I was hearing about. I was hearing about people getting taken advantage of, like by contractors, getting liens put on their house. But the one thing that I just never even heard about, that I found out that was the most like insidious crime and the most easily perpetrated and most probably lucrative crime. And so criminals, listen up. It's is the deed fraud that I had never even heard of until last winter when I went last February after going viral. That was when somebody contacted me, said, "Hey, this isn't a squatter thing, but do you know about deed fraud? This is what happened to my grandma. It's crazy." I'm listening. And they went and described how their grandma lost all their home equity because somebody forged a deed and then sold her house out from underneath her. And I'm thinking, that can't
Wow.
happen. Is this
So I'm actually interested to hear this because what has come up lately, and I've heard it a lot in the real estate industry, and I think this is the same thing, but tell me if it's not,
yeah.
where I'll get a call from somebody who says, I have a property and I need you to go put it on the market right away. And it's not somebody I know, which is weird because so much of my business
Yeah.
is referred. And so I'll pull up the tax record and they'll send information that they might have a fake ID, something saying that's their house. And
Mhm.
they have literally gotten all the way through closing and received the money before anybody realized that was not the owner of the house. Is that what you're
Yep.
talking about?
It is, yeah, that's one form of it. That's deed fraud, and so that's the impersonation. So that's when you have just they don't even bother. stealing it, but they don't really bother stealing it from the person in the first place. They just impersonate the seller. They say, "Hi,
Yes,
I'm Marguerite. I got this ID off the internet that or off the dark web. There's my mug right there. I'm Marguerite, as you can see. It says so right here on the license." So that when the notary gives it a cursory glance, they look at it, but like and or put their little stamp on it. Is if you've stolen somebody's identity, then a lot of times you get what are referred to as fulls, which are like name, social, date of birth, like everything. And if you got an ID to match, you can open up a bank account. And a lot of times on the dark web, they'll just do that for you. They'll already have the bank account like open. And so you've got wiring information. Yep, I'm Marguerite. As you can see, I just, you want to buy this house? I'll sell it to you for 200K under value. Like, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, absolutely.
of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, I'll take
I'll
it. Yeah.
I'll buy that. And I've never gotten that phone call before, but I know a couple wholesaler friends that have because wholesalers close quickly. And what are we trying
Yeah.
to do here? Trying to commit this
Yeah.
crime real quick. So yeah, it's so they'll either impersonate them or they will just steal it in the name of somebody else that they've impersonated. So instead of impersonating Marguerite, who owns the house, they'll just impersonate stolen identity of some guy. And he then put him on title with a fake deed, which is really easy to forge. It's just computer paper and a little stamp. And then at that point, they after they steal it, then the homeowner, Marguerite, calls up the title company and says, "Hey, somebody stole my title." And they say, "Okay, yeah, it looks like you have a title policy. And ooh, it looks like you have an Alta owner's policy." And then that policy actually does not cover fraud and impersonation after the policy date, which is when you bought the house. If it's a homeowner's policy, it's confusing, but it's owners and homeowners policy, then yes, you do have coverage. But here's the thing, most people don't have a homeowner's policy. Take a look at your closing statement. It'll probably tell you. And if you don't have that, you are SOL.
Wow. I don't I think I'm gonna have to go get a title company guest now because I'm not sure that I completely know, and I've been doing this 31 years. I know that there's an owner's policy and there's a lender's policy, the Alta policy, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I even knew there was a difference between the owner's and the homeowner's policy.
Neither did I. And if you go to the Alta page, they explain it to you. But title companies are all generally selling like the same products, right? And they're competing on like on customer service. They're selling the Alta policies. The homeowner's policy, as you might imagine, is a whole lot more expensive. And so if they're competing on cost and customer service,
They're not
then
even
yeah,
offering it.
they're probably not even offering it because why would you, it's like, okay, title insurance, like 9 people out of 10 don't even know what that is in the first place, let
Right.
alone like, why do we want to spend another, $1,000 on it? Or like have to spend all this other money buying the house in the first place. We want whatever this. Oh, do we ever use title insurance? Almost never. Okay, yeah, no, let's not spend a lot of money on this. So so yeah, it's really like a perfect setup to be exploited by the title thieves.
That is insane.
Yeah.
So, what is it you're doing in your courses that is helping with these problems? What are you teaching?
So as soon as I heard about this, I was like, okay, there's got to be a way to prevent this. And it turns out as that because like the deed recording process is basically the same in every single county nationwide, which is you get a deed, it has to be notarized, grantor, grantee, property address, legal description, yada yada. But they look at it, they've got all this information, they change it in their computer system, they put their little stamp on it, and boom, it's just like recorded. And that's basically the system with every county recorder's office nationwide. You can't prevent somebody from forging a deed and giving it to the county recorder and having them record it because you'd have to basically have a system in place that would have to be implemented into every county in the entire country that changes that. So you can't prevent that, but what you can prevent is having your equity stolen. And that happens subsequent to having the title stolen. So what Title Fraud Defender does is it monitors your title. Like you can monitor your title. You can monitor your title yourself every morning with your coffee. Just refresh your county page over and over again and make sure that Marguerite is still on title to her house. Like, okay, I can go to work now. I'm still on title, but we just have it automated. So for $5 a month, that's the most it costs. If you put more, it goes down to like $2 a month. We just check for you every single day. And if anything's ever awry, we ping you right away. We say, yo, Marguerite, what's up with this? Looks like George is now on title of your house. Did you do that? We cool here? And
Wow.
if not, then you file an affidavit, you call a lawyer, you call the title company, you can freeze it and make it so that nobody can steal your equity at that point. Because that's the bad part, right? It's like having all your equity stolen, those hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. That's what you want to prevent. So that's what Title Fraud Defender does. It just monitors the title, and if anything's awry, tells you right away.
So what's interesting is now with the AI that's coming out, and it's
Mhm.
getting some of it's getting so realistic, right? Where they can actually replicate your voice, your likeness, your everything.
Mhm.
It makes me wonder even more so, like, where is this gonna go? Because it mostly scares me when it comes to, like, elderly people and grandkids and things like that, where their
Yeah.
grandkids, they're using an AI to call grandma and say, "Oh my gosh, grandma's in an accident, send her $10,000," or something insane. And
Wow.
so it feels like that's even more headed to the real estate industry, because one thing that has been prevalent that, thank goodness, I've not been impacted by it, is even wire fraud, right?
Yeah.
I'm crazy about when I talk to my clients, I said, listen to this carefully. I'm going to repeat it like 3 times. Pay attention when I talk about wire fraud, because I had a friend here locally that she was representing, I think, the seller, and it was, and the buyers were had borrowed 400,000 from one family member and 400,000 from another family member.
Mhm.
They had it in their account. The buyers go to wire the money to close, and a hacker had intervened,
Oh,
and
no.
$800,000 got wired to
Oh my
out of the
god.
country.
Oh my god.
And who do you blame in that situation? Whose fault is it?
It's
It was
done,
an email
unfortunately.
that had gotten sent to, that had gotten intervened. Something had gotten the email, and they had changed one, and the emails look so legitimate. Literally, they have one little word change or one little something, and they $800,000. Yeah.
Holy smokes,
Buyers
yeah.
lost the home, obviously. The sellers couldn't close. It was a shit
What
show,
an
for lack of a better word.
absolute
Yeah.
fiasco. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's just horrible. 800 grand just out the window like that. And it's so funny. I've become almost numb to these stories like that
Yeah.
because that's what I heard about with all this title fraud stuff. And that's why I had to start Title Fraud Defender. I'm like, damn, I got to do something about this. And actually, that wire fraud story that you're talking about, that actually happened in a transaction that I was involved with. It happened to the buyer of a place that I owned and was selling. And so it was right, of course, like when you wire the money, like a day or two before closing. And oh, hang on, George, we got a problem. I think my client has been wire frauded. I'm like, oh no. And so I feel terrible for her. I feel mostly terrible for her, but a little terrible for me because like my sale is failing.
Right.
It's going to go away. This was like the very uncommon case where they actually were able to retrieve the money. Normally, it's gone. And
Yeah.
everybody I talked to, because I was like, guys, what happens when you get wire frauded? Is it ever gone? And they're like, no, dude, it's gone. It's over. You should just go back on market. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But they actually got it back and we actually closed. It took a few weeks, but I held tight. I wasn't gonna hold their feet to the fire after something like that had happened to them. So I'm like, all right, no, I'll hang tight. And they
That
closed.
is that is just insane. So, how can people get access to these programs? I think it's really amazing what you've created, and out of a need, right? There a need, and somebody learns how to fill it.
Yeah.
And so you have 2 programs, am I not mistaken? You have a program for the deed fraud, and then the program for, how does the program for the squatter work?
It's an online course. So if you go to squatterdefender.com, it walks you through everything you get. And that includes a copy of my almost finished book called I Stole a House. And it describes a bunch of real estate scams that I heard after I interviewed with so many people after going viral with my video. But squatterdefender.com, the course is $199. But I've got a promo code for you and
Oh,
your
awesome.
listeners, though. So if you
Thank you.
enter at checkout the promo code Real World with no spaces, then that'll get you 20% off the course. So
Fantastic.
So yeah, and then you also, with that purchase, get a year of Title Fraud Defender for one property. It's a $60 value. So if you use the
Oh, wonderful.
20% and then the title fraud on top of that, it knocks it down to like below $100. And then for Title Fraud Defender, that one's just cheap. Everybody should order that right now. It's $5 a month if you order a year-long subscription. Most people have been ordering the 3-year, which really knocks this cost down to, I don't know, $250 or something like that per month. And that's at titlefrauddefender.com. And that same promo code Real World will also get you 20% off there.
That's really fascinating. I'm definitely going to have a lot of people listening to this episode. And then you said there was a viral video that took off with this too. Is that on your YouTube?
That one, so it's funny. That one actually got taken off of TikTok like pretty much instantly. Like it blew up really quick, and then 30 minutes later, it got taken off of TikTok. And then same with Meta, except for it lasted on Meta for Instagram and Facebook. That is for 4 days, got like millions of hits, and then it was taken down, put back up, and then taken down again. But then on my X account, which I'm not super active on X, but it actually got posted by other people to other accounts that wasn't linking back to me, which is actually where some of those death threats resulted from, because it wasn't linking back to my profile. But that's
Awesome.
where it got like tens and tens of millions of hits. And so if you Google George McCleary, I stole a house, it's not too hard to find. It'll take you either to X or somewhere, or an article like I got written up like worldwide on this thing. Hey, this
Oh
guy
my
stole a
gosh.
house. I'm like, yo, that wasn't me. That was, or it was, that was me, but I didn't really steal it. Guys, come on, do some research.
That's so funny. So I have a good friend, Barry Mathis, who ended up on Dr. Phil's show. Because he's a property manager. I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to connect you guys. And I'm actually getting ready to interview him next week. And there's an episode of him on Dr. Phil
nice.
where he's talking about managing property. And this gal is on the show saying they have plenty of properties. They should just let people live in it.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Holy
You're like,
smoke. Yeah, I
what is
actually
the
was
matter with you?
I was on the Dr. Phil show over the summer, and
Were you?
yeah, and they like to pit people against each other. It makes for good
Yeah.
television. And on our episode, the people that were like the adversaries were they canceled at the last minute, so it was a bunch of people on stage agreeing with each other. But it was pretty funny. But no, there are some hot takes out there, and people just should give away their houses.
Of
Yeah,
course, you didn't work for it or anything, just give it away. Yeah.
yeah, why the heck not?
And I think what Barry said, he goes, "I'm just gonna come move into your house. Would that be okay?" And she's like,
Yeah, exactly.
"Hold
No,
on." Yeah.
I'm not a wealthy investor like you, so therefore you should just give everything you have away.
Yeah, it's the entitlement, and anyway, that's a whole nother show, but,
Whole nother
um
show, but yeah, no, it does run hand in hand.
exactly. George, thank you so much for joining us today. This is really fascinating. I feel like I said, I got a few stories, and we could probably do a whole nother show just on the stories, would be a ton of fun. But
Absolutely.
thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Marguerite. This was great.
So be sure and head on over to Real Estate Real World and check out the stuff. We'll be sure and have his discount code in our show notes. It'll be Real World. So we'll also have the links to his programs that you can check out. And thank you guys so much for joining us again on Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people, even the ones that steal a house. So it's pretty cool. Not really. It's just a joke. But thank you for joining us. Be sure to give us a review if you're so inclined. And by the way, I just launched a new ebook that you can check out at margueritecrespillo.com on the 10 fatal mistakes real estate agents make that keep them from being successful. Go check it out. And be sure to listen to us on all your social channels. Thank you so much again for joining us on Real Estate Real World. Go out and make it an amazing day. Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in the real estate industry and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes, and while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others to find our podcast for show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry. Also, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email to get early advance notice of upcoming podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and go out there and be a part of the elite masterclass and raising the bar on the real estate industry.